The ocean has always been a symbol of possibility, a place of travel, trade, and connection. But for millions of Africans taken from their homes, the ocean became something else entirely. It became a boundary between worlds, a line between life as they knew it and a future they could not imagine. The Middle Passage was not just a journey across water, it was a rupture, a tearing away from land, identity, family, and history. It was the moment when people who had lived full lives were forced into a system designed to strip them of everything familiar. Before the ship set sail, the captives had already endured the forced march, the holding pens, and the shock of being torn from their world. But the Middle Passage was something different. It was the crossing that turned human beings into commodities in the eyes of those who profited from their suffering. This is the story of that crossing, told with honesty, reverence, and the weight it deserves. For many captives, the first sight of the ocean was overwhelming. Some had never seen such vast water. Some had only heard stories. Some believed they were being taken to another region. Others feared they would never return. The ships anchored offshore were unlike anything they had known. Towering wooden structures, sails stretching into the sky, crews preparing for departure, cargo holds designed for confinement. These ships were not built for comfort or humanity. They were built for transport, efficient, profitable, and indifferent to suffering. The moment captives were brought to the shore, the world they knew ended. The world of the Atlantic began. Boarding the ships was a moment of terror and confusion. People were separated, restrained, and forced into the lower decks. The air was thick with fear, uncertainty, and the weight of what was coming. The captives did not know where they were going, how long the journey would take, what awaited them on the other side. Some believed they were being taken to another land. Some believed they were being taken to their deaths. Some prayed, some resisted, some held onto fragments of hope. The boarding process was the final step before the crossing began. The lower decks of the slave ships were cramped, dark, and suffocating. People were confined in ways that restricted movement and stripped away dignity. The space was designed to maximize profit, not preserve life. The conditions were harsh: limited air, limited space, limited movement, limited light. People were forced into positions that made rest difficult. They were surrounded by others who were just as frightened, just as confused, just as desperate. The hold of the ship was the first place where many realized the scale of the system they had been forced into. The Middle Passage could last weeks or months, depending on weather, route, and conditions. The ocean was unpredictable. Storms could batter the ship. Winds could stall progress. Heat could make the lower decks unbearable. The captives endured hunger, thirst, sickness, exhaustion, fear. The journey was not just physically demanding, it was psychologically devastating. People were cut off from everything familiar: their land, their families, their languages, their traditions, their sense of time. The ocean became a place of disorientation, where days blurred together and the future felt impossible to imagine. The Middle Passage was designed to break identity. Captors attempted to strip away names, languages, cultural practices, spiritual traditions, but even in the darkness of the hold, people found ways to hold onto fragments of themselves: whispered prayers, quiet songs, memories of home, shared stories, silent acts of resistance. These small acts were not insignificant. They were seeds of resilience, seeds that would survive across generations. The Middle Passage was meant to erase identity. Instead, it became the place where identity transformed, adapted, and endured. The Middle Passage was one of the most devastating chapters in human history. Millions were taken from their homes. Millions were forced across the ocean. Countless lives were lost along the way. The crossing reshaped Africa, the Americas, Europe, the entire world. It created new cultures, new identities, and new struggles. It laid the foundation for centuries of racial hierarchy, economic exploitation, and social inequality. The human cost cannot be measured in numbers alone. It must be understood through the stories of those who endured it, stories of suffering, resilience, and survival. When the ships finally reached the Americas, the captives were brought to shore in a world they did not recognize. The land was unfamiliar. The people were unfamiliar. The language was unfamiliar. The system was unfamiliar. They had survived the crossing, but their journey was far from over. The Middle Passage was only the beginning of a new chapter, one marked by forced labor, violence, and the struggle to reclaim humanity in a world built on their exploitation. But even in this new world, the seeds of resilience planted during the crossing would grow. The Middle Passage was not just a journey across water, it was a transformation, a forced transition from one world to another. It was a rupture that reshaped families, cultures, and continents. But it was also a testament to human endurance, a testament to the strength of those who survived, a testament to the resilience that would carry their descendants through centuries of struggle. This is the story of the crossing, the moment when the world changed forever. When the ships finally reached the shores of the Americas, the journey across the Atlantic ended. But the nightmare did not. For the captives who survived the Middle Passage, stepping onto land did not bring relief. It brought a new reality, one shaped by systems designed to control, exploit, and dehumanize. The ocean had taken them from their homes. The land would attempt to take everything else. Arrival in the Americas was not a moment of rescue. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one defined by forced labor, violence, and the struggle to hold on to fragments of identity in a world built on their suffering. This is the story of what happened when the ships reached the shore. As the ships approached the coastline, the captives could see land for the first time in weeks or months. The sight of the shore brought a mix of emotions: fear, confusion, uncertainty, exhaustion, a faint hope that the ordeal might be ending. But the moment the ships anchored, it became clear that this was not a return to freedom. It was the beginning of a new system of captivity. The Americas, whether the Caribbean, Brazil, or the colonies that would become the United States, were lands shaped by plantation economies. These economies demanded labor, and the captives were seen as the solution. The land was unfamiliar. The people were unfamiliar. The language was unfamiliar. The system was unfamiliar. Everything about this world was designed to strip away the past and impose a new identity, one defined by forced labor. Leaving the ship was not a moment of relief. It was a moment of transition from one form of captivity to another. Captives were brought onto the shore in groups. They were examined, sorted, and prepared for sale. They were surrounded by people who spoke languages they did not understand. They were forced into lines, watched closely, and moved with little explanation. The disembarkation process was the first step in integrating them into the plantation system. It was not designed to restore dignity. It was designed to prepare them for the next stage of exploitation. Once on land, many captives were taken to auction sites. These were public spaces where people were bought and sold as laborers. The auction block was a place of separation, fear, humiliation, uncertainty. Families who had survived the Middle Passage together were often separated. People who had formed bonds during the crossing were torn apart. Individuals were purchased based on age, strength, and perceived value. The auction block was not just a transaction. It was a moment that reshaped lives forever. After being purchased, captives were taken to plantations, mines, or households. This was the beginning of a new form of captivity, one that would last for generations. Plantations demanded long hours, harsh conditions, obedience, labor without compensation. People were forced to work in sugar fields, rice fields, cotton fields, tobacco fields, coffee plantations, domestic households. The work was relentless. The conditions were harsh. The system was designed to extract as much labor as possible. This was not a temporary situation. It was a lifelong condition, one that would extend to children and grandchildren. Arrival in the Americas marked the beginning of a deliberate process of cultural erasure. Captors attempted to strip away names, languages, spiritual practices, family structures, cultural traditions. People who had spoken Wolof, Yoruba, Igbo, Congo, Mandinka, and dozens of other languages were forced to communicate in unfamiliar tongues. They were given new names. They were discouraged or punished for practicing their traditions. This was not accidental. It was part of a system designed to break identity and create dependence. But even in this environment, people found ways to preserve fragments of their culture: songs, rhythms, proverbs, spiritual practices, naming traditions, stories. These fragments would become the foundation of African American culture. The transit ion from the Middle Passage to life in the Americas was psychologically devastating. People had survived capture, the forced march, the holding pens, the ocean crossing. But now they faced a new reality: permanent separation from home, permanent separation from family, permanent separation from identity. The psychological weight of arrival was immense. It marked the moment when many realized that they might never return to their homeland. And yet, even in this moment of despair, people found ways to endure, forming new communities, creating new traditions, supporting one another, resisting in small but powerful ways. The human spirit persisted, even in the harshest conditions. Arrival in the Americas was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that would shape the future of the world. From this moment forward, new cultures would form, new languages would emerge, new traditions would develop, new identities would be created. African Americans would become a people forged through suffering, resilience, creativity, and strength. The arrival marked the beginning of centuries of struggle, but also centuries of endurance, innovation, and transformation. The Middle Passage ended when the ships reached the shore, but the journey of captivity was far from over. Arrival in the Americas marked the beginning of a new world, one built on forced labor, cultural erasure, and systemic oppression. But it also marked the beginning of a story of resilience, a story of survival, a story of transformation. The people who stepped onto the shores of the Americas carried with them fragments of identity that would shape generations to come. This is the story of arrival, the moment when the past was torn away and a new, uncertain future began.